2 of learning how to chevron stitch. In the first part I showed you this diagram and I went through it step by step. Hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to link that video below, but if not, it will be on my channel. So if you click my name there below the video and go to the videos, it should be right there for you. Okay, so in this one, in this part 2 video, I am going to take you through the simple single crochet version of chevron. So let's get started. I am using this yarn here. This is, I love this yarn brand from Hobby Lobby, and the name is very apt. I do love this yarn. It's one of the nicest yarns I have ever worked with. Okay, so we're going to start with a chain. Now for this blanket that I'm showing you in the background, I started with gray because that was going to be my border color, and then I moved on to my other colors. Okay, I have this upside down. Oh well. I did a chain with the gray, and then I switched over to my next color. Okay? But for the purposes of this video demonstrating, I'm just going to do all one color and tell you where you would actually change colors. But I'm going to move this out of the way so it's not distracting. And we're going to start with our slip knot. For those of you who know how to do this, maybe you'll find a different way. I'll probably do it because I know there's like 3 or 4 different versions I've seen. This is my version. I take the yarn and I drape it over my left index finger, and this, I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed you might do this on your other hand. But I drape it away from me and I bring it down and towards me, and on this side of the trailing yarn, and then I pinch it, and then this yarn here I bring up and over following the same direction, and then I take this yarn here and I pull it over this one. I pull tight, and that's your slip knot. Put it onto your hook, and pulling the longer yarn, you pull tight. Okay? And then to chain, we're going to yarn over and pull through, and you keep doing that. Okay? Now to figure out how many chains you need, you look at your diagram and you count. For the purposes of this video, I'm doing exactly this. So that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Okay? So that was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay? 41. And then I use this back ribbing. You can see like this side here looks like a braid, and then this side here has this, it looks like links of a chain. So we're going to skip this stitch here and go directly into our next one. So that's this one here, and we're going to do a single crochet. Okay? So that's first stitch, second stitch, and remember we're doing 10. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now this is the top of this one here. So that's our leg there. So remember, we do our single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all into that same stitch. So we're going to chain 1, 2, and then into that same stitch, doing another single crochet. Pulling some yarn out to get an even tension. Okay, so we have 1 stitch for this side, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here's number 10. And now we're at the valley. So this is the mountaintop, we're at our valley, we're going to skip 2. So we're skipping these 2 stitches here and moving on to that one. Okay, so that's 1 and 2, so we're moving into this one here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, that was 7. Okay. 8, 9, and 10. We're at our mountaintop. So we're going to chain 2 and then single crochet into that same spot. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, when I was doing my blanket, this is where I switched colors. So this blanket here, when I got to an edge and I was done with the foundation, which is what we just made, I switched to color to move on to the next one. So to do that, there's 2 ways to do it that I can manage. There's some way to make it a seamless change, and I have not managed to figure that out, but there are plenty of examples on YouTube if you want to search for that. Okay, so one way is to yarn over and then snip your yarn and tie off, and then simply start your next color in. Or what I started doing was I snipped here and then tied it as close to the edge here as I could, so that when I did that yarn over into the chain, your next color would be up right here. Okay, so if you're going to change colors, this is where you do it. If not, simply chain one and turn your work and continue on. But at this point, you should have your new color tied on if you're switching. So we're skipping this first stitch here and we're going into our next one. Okay, and you're going to single crochet, and you continue on all the way up. Sorry, I'm used to having this a lot closer to me and not trying to be underneath the camera, so my hook is slipping out a little bit more than it normally does. I'm pulling out a little bit more yarn. Okay. We're almost to the top of the mountain. So far we have done 9 stitches. So stitch 10 goes into this chain 2 space that's right here. Okay. And now we're going to chain 2 and do another single crochet into that same chain 2 space. So that's stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There we go. There's 10. Now I always count down into the valley because that's where you skip stitches and it's a little bit harder to tell where those stitches are. So that's this stitch here and this stitch here that we're skipping, and we're going directly into this one. And remember, there's no chain in between. Okay. Stitch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and stitch 10 goes into that chain 2 space. And we're chaining 1 and 2 and back into the chain 2 space, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, I'm going to pause here to talk for a minute. Okay. Now, we're skipping this last stitch, and we will always do that. on this particular one, and all the other ones as well, depending on, it doesn't really matter what stitch you're using. You'll skip your last one to create this edge going straight up, because if not, it would continue going off that way. Okay, now if you want to switch colors, this is where you would switch as an example. Okay, you can change every row, or you can have your rows thicker. This here, I did 4 rows in each color, so four rows is 1 stitch in this color, then I switched, did another 4 rows. Okay, you can do however many rows as you want. You can do 1 solid color, you can do 10 rows, 1 color, switch color, do 5 rows or 4, or however many you want to do. But this would be where you can change colors, just like how I showed you before on this end when we were switching. Okay, but if you're not switching colors and you're continuing on, or if you go ahead and switch colors, you're ready for your next part. Okay, so to continue on to the next row from here, we're going to do chain 1, flip your work. Okay, and we are always going to skip this first stitch and move on to our next one. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 goes into the chain 2 space. Now we're creating another chain 2 space. Then we go back to the same space there, and then continue down the valley. So that's stitch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we're skipping these 2 stitches and moving on to this one. Okay, and then continue up, and make sure you always go underneath 2 strands. From this angle, holding it underneath the camera, I'm finding it difficult getting my hook under both sometimes. And this is where the pattern gets simple, where you just simply repeat. Okay. Chain 2 in the same place, single crochet, and now we're coming down to our end. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, I lost count there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that was 10. Okay. And your piece will curl until you get it quite a bit thick this way. So that's normal. Don't worry about it. Just work with it. Is my best advice for that. This is going to be it for this video. What you do is you just continue on. To tie off, you would yarn over, snip your yarn, and then pull through to pull it tight. So, just a quick review. After you have your chart, if you want to chart it out, and it doesn't have to be this complicated, okay? I've done it on the back of the papers that wrap around the yarn as a quick little sketch to figure out how many stitches I need. So once you have your diagram and you figure out how many chains, go for it. So after you get your thing, always remember at the end you need to chain 1 before you move on. And at your mountain peaks, if you want to use that analogy, you chain 2 at the top. So you single crochet into your chain here, chain 2, single crochet again, all into that same stitch. On your next go around, it's a single crochet into your chain 2 space, chain, chain, single crochet, all into that same space, okay? And then in your valleys, for your first time around, you're skipping 2 chains, and you go from 1 single crochet directly into a next single crochet. There is no chain whatsoever between these 2 stitches. And on your second go around and further up, you're skipping your 2 stitches below. And again, there is no chain. Okay? This space here is just because it's graph paper and it's a bit spread out. But remember, directly into your next stitch. On your ends, I always count how many stitches going down, so I remember to skip the bottom one. So your number of stitches going down in each row is the same, so that it goes up in a straight line. And then you chain 1 and you move on to your next row. When you change colors, do it at the end of a row. Unless you want to get somehow fancy and do in the middle. That's up to you. I've never done that. I always wait until I get to the end and then I change colors. Okay? And then once you're done and you're ready for a border, I'll bring this back out. For your tops and your bottoms, it's basically doing the same thing. You're doing your chevron. For the edges, it's a bit complicated, but basically you want to do 1 stitch for each row. If you're doing single crochet, for double crochet, you want 2 for each one. And then for half double, I kind of wing it and I pick out the holes there, and it ends up being about, like, there's 4 rows here and I think I have 6 stitches here, 6 or 7. But you're looking for your edges here, excuse me, hook got caught. But you're looking for holes in the edge to even it up. And then I don't do any fancy pattern, I just do the same stitch. So this is half double, so I just did rows of half double. And there's 4 on this one because I made it the same as what I was doing here, because I wanted the border here to be the same. So that's how I did the border. You don't have to have a border if you don't want it. Some of them turn out looking quite nicely. This one, for example, has, this is the edge, and that actually looks kind of neat looking. so it wouldn't necessarily need to border. I am going to do border though because I like having, it makes it look more finished to me. Okay, continuing on in part 3, I will show you how to make this piece.